Because there's not enough room to do.
And they go like that.
Oh, switch back.
I saw your logo.
Numbered streets.
Be getting ready to start very shortly.
Charles, you sit next to your girlfriend. I'll sit next to mine.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the District 6 pre-session Town Hall meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. And ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please silence all electronic devices. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the District 6 pre-session Town Hall meeting. My name is Paul Blitz, and I will serve as tonight's moderator for our Town Hall meeting. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming out during these bitter cold temperatures and threat of snow to hear from your elected officials. I would also like to thank the Baltimore County Public Library North Point Branch for hosting tonight's Town Hall meeting. Our format this evening, ladies and gentlemen, will be as follows. When you arrive, you are asked to write down questions on index cards. This will help facilitate things and keep things flowing. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and someone will come around and give you an index card to give to one of our staff members. We will try to answer as many questions as time allows. Proper decorum will remain at all times, and we ask that you please be respectful at all times for a proper discussion of exchange of topics and ideas, so once again, we keep things moving on a regular pace. I will read the index cards. Each elected official will be given 2 minutes to answer the question on the index card. Thank you. And other elected officials have 1 minute for a follow-up answer if he chooses to do so. The elected officials remain afterwards during the town hall meeting for refreshments. And then this time, ladies and gentlemen, you can have some one-on-one time with them as well to answer any of your questions. So we'll get started, ladies and gentlemen, with some opening remarks. So it is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to present to you the Vice Chairman of the Baltimore County Senate Delegation, Senator Johnny Ray Salley.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's cold weather because it's pretty nasty out. So I'm going to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I'm going to thank the North Point Library for having this opportunity to share with a few things that I know are important to you and are important to me. First of all, I want to tell you, my name is Johnny Ray Salley. I'm your senator in this district of probably, I believe, not probably, but I believe it's the greatest district in Maryland. With me tonight, we have our 6th District House Representative. We have Robin Grammer. We have Bob Long. We have As we get started, I just want to let you know about what's been going on locally in the district and what's happening statewide and the legislation I'm going to be proposing this year, 2018. One biggest thing that I think has been emphasized more than anything with the governor, but with us, is jobs. Jobs with Trade One, they have several companies. Other companies are looking to coming in as like the small company, Royal Farms, that people do know. But I think the biggest thing we're looking into is manufacturing, and we're looking into windmills. If you really think about what windmills could bring here, building them there, it's the greatest opportunity I believe we have in this area to bring over 1,000 jobs. We have the skill set here already. We have been promoting that. And we will continue to promote that and bring good jobs. I think our emphasis have been good jobs. And we will not stop until we continue to bring the good jobs that are necessary here from what we have lost before. I think another important thing is something that's been brought up, and that we have did a letter as a district, and I personally did a letter myself, is Manawa Shoal. It's an area where the delegation and myself are totally against, and the people in our area in Baltimore County is against dredging. It's the last area where the watermen know, the sportsmen know, that are out there that we need to take care of. and
$100
cherish.
fine, by the way. I'll take it, $100 fine.
So we are gonna continue to fight for Manawa Shoal. We're gonna make sure that it's not dredged in every way possible. This is something that has been brought up every year in legislation. And we will push and we will shove in every which way that we can, make sure that they do not touch this area of importance. The new VA hospital, it's a new clinic that is gonna be built this year in August of 2018 at the Franklin Square Professional Center. It is over 12,000 square feet, which is the largest that is from the former clinic. The biggest, much bigger than that. It's located close to the major highway, mass transit, and will be giving free shuttles to those that need it, that area. And we're looking forward to that because my emphasis, and I think the delegation also has been for our veterans to see much more we can do for them. The midges, if you live in the Essex area more than anywhere else, it's been a major problem. And it's not little people, they're butts. And just to let you know, the state has given over this year 300,000 jobs to combat these problems, these little things that have made problems with small businesses and with all those that go out on the boats and in our area. The county has not provided a penny. So we will continue to work to solve this problem, and we're hoping that we can get more help from the county. But just to let you know, more than anything, we're gonna continue to work with our state and our legislature to get more.
Thank you, Senator Salmon. Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great honor and privilege for me to introduce to you a member of the House Appropriations Committee, Delegate Robert L. Cramer Jr.
Thank you, Paul, appreciate it. Before I get started, I just want to touch on a bit of a personal note. This last year has been a real blessing for my family and myself. For those of you who don't know, my son, our first child came 2 months early, and that made for a very hectic Christmas and holiday season last year. Since then, he's been doing fantastic. He's just took him about 2 weeks after he took his first step. Now he's running all over the place, driving us crazy. So this last year for my wife and myself has been a bit of a challenge, but for those of you who have kids, it's been a real blessing. And many people sent us positive thoughts, letters, and we really appreciated that, so thank you. So I'll begin talking about their interests and interest of this district that we always try to pursue. We're not the only people that are present in Annapolis, and there's always kind of a context that the session tends to operate under. So I'll talk about a couple things that are, for better or for worse, just going to happen in the 2018 legislative session, this year being an election year. A lot of these are driven by electoral politics. So we live in the Baltimore region, and crime tends to be the issue of the day. We're in close proximity to the city, and they're having some real problems there. I think it was 2 days ago now, the news broke that the city of Baltimore had the worst murder rate per capita in the entire country in recorded history. And you know, my family originally is from Baltimore, as are many families in our district, and nobody wants to see this trend continue. So the Baltimore Sun has actually really done a pretty good job of covering the issue in a couple pieces. And what we're seeing in a lot of cases is people that get arrested and are convicted oftentimes go to pleas. And we're seeing violent criminals that are going back in front of a judge 5, 6, 7 times and they're being let out of jail. So I think judicial oversight, while I personally won't be sponsoring any bills for this, I know that there is great discussion in really both caucuses in Annapolis to talk about and debate why we're sending repeat drug offenders, not necessarily just people who own drugs, but people who are selling hard drugs, committing violent crimes or getting sent in front of a judge and being put out on the street 5, 6, and 7 times over. For those of you who are interested, it's not on the front of many people's radar. We do have 2 breweries here in the district, and there's a big legislative fight between it's the wholesalers, the licensed beverage people, and the local breweries. It's the issue that the comptroller has driven over the last year. It's when people talk about money in politics, they don't often know specifically where it's happening. Well, it's happening in alcohol, and it's what you essentially have is the what is the money people behind the Annapolis establishment are really coming down on the little guys here, and they're essentially using the law to squash little people out of the market. So I know that's not a big controversial issue on a lot of people's radar, but that will be a giant fight, and it's going to mean a lot for a lot of people in Annapolis. 2 very controversial bills that were pushed last year and were actually defeated. There was a sanctuary state bill and a Section 8 bill. They both passed the House and were defeated in the Senate. I fully anticipate there hasn't been a lot of discussion about this, but I fully anticipate those bills will probably will be sponsored. They'll probably pass the House once more and move on to the Senate. And I personally anticipate a giant fight between the House and the Senate over the passage of those bills, and I would watch the news because I think it's really going to have an impact for our district here. Marijuana, this is going to be a big issue of the day. So the word on the street is it is election time, and a lot of people, especially in this district, have a lot of varying opinions about marijuana. A lot of people will look more favorably on it for medicinal purposes, medical uses, especially with the opioid issue we're having right now. There's discussion, and a lot of people are telling the same story, and that is that it's going to be put on the ballot. And what I mean by putting it on the ballot, they're going to put marijuana legalization on the ballot for you to vote on in the 2018 election. So why would you do that? Okay, so a lot of people on both sides of the issue, but it becomes a matter of turnout. In 2014, there was a bit of a low turnout, especially on one side of the equation. And frankly, to be honest with you, it's being put on the ballot to try and knock out the governor. Now that's just the word on the street, but I would fully anticipate seeing that coming in the maybe even the early weeks of the session. So my bills, talk about a couple things. I'll probably be working on this session. About 4 years ago, the county executive mentioned this, and it's actually a really big issue for our district. We operate on Baltimore City Water, which leaves many of the communities in Baltimore County subject to the operation of Baltimore City agencies. In a lot of cases, you have crumbling infrastructure, you have terrible service. You'll call about a problem and they'll give you a ridiculous excuse. I've actually seen water coming up through a street. And when I as a state lawmaker called Baltimore City, they said, well, it's just the rising water table. I've never seen the rising water table. I don't think I have to explain any further. And when the county executive talked about it, he said, we should have a regional water authority. Why doesn't Baltimore County or the other counties that are on Baltimore City Water have any kind of say about spending or infrastructure or decision-making about what, frankly, infrastructure that's been crumbling for 100 years. There was it yesterday or today, there was a video on Facebook of a water main that had broken and erupted, and it was spraying like 50 feet out of the ground onto a group of row homes. And the word was that their basements are full of water. I think what gets lost oftentimes in the battle of politics, this isn't just a show where one team's against the other. We have responsibilities for overseeing public services, and frankly, nobody's really done a good job of overseeing our public water. So we're going to explore that this session with the potential of giving Baltimore County residents and leaders a say in our water infrastructure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've neglected my own time here, it seems. So I'll be happy to stick around. I've got a pretty good list of other issues that I'll be working this session, and I'll be staying here afterward in case you want to talk about any issues. I know a lot of these issues are issues I've been working on with people who are here today. So if there's an issue that's important to you, I'd be happy to stick around and talk about it. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great honor and privilege for me to introduce to you a member of the House and Ways Committee, House Ways and Means Committee, Delegate Bob Long.
Thanks everybody for coming in. I'm gonna step down here. Did everybody here get their tax assessment, your reassessment? Happy? Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. You have to file your appeal by February 12th. I'm gonna try to do a town hall, but contact our office if we can help you out. Everybody should appeal their property taxes, because a lot of times it could be an extra bathroom you could be charged for, square footage. You wanna make sure that that information the county has and the state has is accurate. So if you have any questions about the taxes, tax appeal, let me know. I think we might even do a town hall on it, because for one, I've been paying up property tax. I'm done.
You're done.
Yeah, well, I don't mind paying my fair share.
Yeah.
But anyway, some of the things that I worked on last year and I'm going to finish this year is active assailant in Baltimore City School, events and training and drills. We were promised from Dallas Deans that he would start informing the school board of the different activities that they were doing, drills that they were taking for active assailant. Is everyone familiar with what active assailant is? It's basically active shooter, but it can be either a gun and or a knife, could be whatever. Anytime someone steps into a school, we want to make sure that that school is prepared to deal with whatever's they have to deal with. That's important because especially nowadays they're attacking churches. This is a kind of bill you hope to never have to use, but we want to make sure people are prepared. As you all well know, I like the property taxes, so the homeowner property tax supplement, right now it's at $60,000. If you're a homeowner and your income, joint income is only $60,000, you can get a tax credit towards your homeowner, your homestead tax or your homeowner's tax credit. I had a bill in last year raised that to $72,000. That would be today's money when this was passed back in, I think, 90. But if you do the math, today it'd be $72,000 plus the assets would go up. You'd be able to have more assets. Also, we're looking at the homestead property tax. Are everybody familiar with your property taxes, how they work? They go up 4% a year. I'd like to see them reduced to 3% a year. Let's make the county be more accountable for the money they spend, especially my tax money and yours. We're going to also put in a Baltimore County home buyers, for first-time home buyers. We're going to set it up where it can be a tax incentive for people to come out and buy homes. We're talking about Section 8 housing. I'll just say how we're going to deal with that is make sure we get homeowners back into our communities, strengthen our older neighborhoods. If you have skin in the game, I've said this time and time again, they're going to take better care of the property. They're going to be responsible in their neighborhood. We had in for several years was a tax-free for period for universities and colleges for textbooks. We're going to put that back in again this year also. We basically give two times a year that the students would buy textbooks tax-free. I think it's a good idea. I mean, students are struggling to go through college, so we want to help them out any way we can. Sunday hunting, I think Robin's gonna produce a bill, it's something we need to look into. It does affect us down here, because we have people in Edgemere like to hunt. They work 7 days a week, 6 to 7 days a week, and sometimes the only time they can hunt is on Sunday. So we're gonna look into that. I think Baldwin County is the only jurisdiction that doesn't, okay, there's Montgomery County, I believe. Yeah, but anyway, it's not fair. And I was, actually invited to the White House about the tax, overall. Is everybody aware of it? All right, well, I want to tell you this, I've always wondered what they meant by fake news. Fake news is not telling the whole story. And for some reason, it's not the news media, it's the people reporting it. If you pick apart the tax reform, if you pull out one part, it looks bad. But I'm telling you, everything that I've researched and everything I've looked at, things are gonna get better. And I'm here standing flat-footed in front of you saying that I've did my research and it's gonna get better. You're gonna see more money in the pot. If you're a millionaire, it's not gonna be quite as good for you. You're being told just the opposite of what the truth of the matter is. And I have all the information here. I would love to go into it, because it's a lot. But,
Can we wrap it up, please, Bill?
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Real quick, the president's trying to get businesses to come back to the United States. That's what this is all about, putting people back to work, good paying jobs with benefits. That's what it's all about. We kind of got behind the ball when Bethlehem Steel left, because we weren't prepared for what was coming. So now we're training our workforces, and the governor's definitely working hard for that. We're going to have a P-TECH school over at Dundalk High School. I mean, I think we're doing, the governor's doing a great job in that. Anyway, I have everything about the taxes. If anybody wants to talk to me, I'd be more than glad to share with you. And please email me about your property tax assessment. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great honor and privilege for me to introduce to you a member of the House Health and Government Operations Committee, Delegate Rick Metzger.
Good evening, everybody. You ought to give yourselves a round for coming out on a cold night. Of course, it's not as cold as it was last night, but I will tell you that you're the best looking crowd I've seen all day.
Say that to
I stayed at my house today and worked. This past year has been a great year. Some of the things that we've done and accomplished and trying to get accomplished and so forth. But I'm gonna be real brief tonight, because it's supposed to be brief, and you've heard the ground rules. But I'm gonna talk about some 4 bills that I'm going to introduce, maybe 5. But one of the bills that I'm going to introduce is Saturday court. I was talking about maybe doing night court. Well, they got a lot of laughs, because our generation remember night court. But Saturday court, after talking to some sheriffs and some clerks of the court around the state, they felt that that's much a better idea, because that way nobody has to take off of work on Saturday, and you won't be putting out as many as failure to appears for not showing up for court. I think we have a couple officers in here that would probably agree that it's probably something to try, get some conversation at least started. The other thing that I'm going to put a bill in for, and I know that everyone in this room has experienced it or have heard of it. How many of you heard about some people getting abused in child support payments? This one gets this one gets to pay less, this one gets to pay more. I'm trying to bring some balance. In fact, I was talking to the bill director today that, let me just share this with you, probably do not know, that if a wife makes, let's just use round numbers here, $250,000, and the husband makes $50,000, they divide that by $300,000 as a combined income. Well, if you're dissolving your marriage, there's no $300,000 in that. So they got to bring that equation kind of back down. The other bill that I'm looking forward to putting in is a referendum talking about this. Folks, we've tried, and I'm a man of faith. And one of the things that I believe in is the power of prayer. And I'm going to bring in for referendum, just to ask you a question, how many would support volunteer prayer by the students at graduation or activities and sporting events?
Amen, brother.
Well, I'm going to put that bill in as a referendum, And through the General Assembly, of course, I need a fair majority to get that through for Baltimore County. I'm gonna, sometimes you need to crawl before you walk, so we'll take baby steps and work at that. I believe that Baltimore County would be a great place to start. So that's what I'm also working on. Also, the other bill that I'm, promises made, promises kept. I made a promise that I would be fighting for toll reduction. And again, I'm gonna continue to fight for the Key Bridge to bring, we've tried it 3 years in a row, so this year I'm gonna put a bill in to kind of balance it out and do a $100 one-time fee for a year, per year, for the people that live the southeastern Baltimore County as well as Anne Arundel County. That way the employees that are Trade Point Atlantic bringing over here and people that work on the other side, we can bring some reality in. Just like the Hayden Bridge, folks, we're Marylanders, just like they are, so we should get the same equation. Now, as a preacher, that's a good spot to say amen. But $100 a year for the Key Bridge, to use the Key Bridge, per year.
No charge.
No, just $100. My time is up.
Thank you, Delegate Metzger. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that apparently we're all on the same wavelength, so some of the issues that you've raised on these cards, our delegates in the State Senate have already raised, so we'll get right into it. So I will ask the question, and then if that's directed towards any particular elected official, we'll have 2 minutes, and then the other elected officials can respond for a minute if they choose to do so, and I will launch this clock. Okay, our first question. What would like to know specifically the plan of action for the Fort Howard situation? Would like to kick this off? Delegate Rammer?
So let's back up and talk about what is the Fort Howard situation. So as I understand it, and sorry, I'll stand up for you. As I understand it, the federal government used to give special use leases for particular projects. And there was one that was granted for the property at Fort Howard. Now, as I understand, the gentleman who got the lease for the project is basically incapable of executing anything. Now, the local zoning to allow for anything has basically been completely downzoned. So until there's some kind of an agreement between the community and the developer, and the developer not being the current developer because he isn't doing anything, there's nothing that's going to happen there. So the thought is if the current developer who had the lease was to proceed with any kind of project, he'd have to bring in some kind of help from another developer. Now that's been, there was another developer that looked into it, and and I met that guy once and I said, well, show me what you've done. Can you give me even like a traffic study? He didn't even have a traffic study. And that kind of describes where that is, in my mind. I don't see the development at Fort Howard really going anywhere right now. I think I think personally we're going to have to get congressmen involved. I think that's what it's going to have to come down to. If I was a congressman, what I would do is I would sponsor a bill so that if that lease expired, the state of Maryland got first rights of purchase for the site. And frankly, if Maryland held ownership rights, I think we'd be a lot better off with local control over it.
30 seconds, Doctor.
30 seconds, I'll wrap up in 15. The problem right now, to me, is if that developer walks away, there's a list of steps that the federal government has to offer that property to, and it's like prisons, HUD, and I don't think that any of the top of the line on that list is going to serve us very well. So if I was the congressman, I'd sponsor a bill that gave the state of Maryland first rights to that site. It's a historic site, and I think the locals should get the say in what happens there.
Real quick, 1 minute.
Real quick, I'm going to be short and sweet. This should be for our veterans. Bottom line, I remember going through VA, or through the Fort Howard, when the veterans were still there in the hospital, and that's a historical site. number one, it needs to be left for the veterans. Number two, there is contamination on that site. It's something to do with ordinance. There's some benzenes and all kind of other stuff. So there's some stuff that's going to have to be addressed. And I believe it's on the cleanup by, I think, is it 32? So it's not going to happen quick. You can't really do much with the property. It's contaminated. So, you know, we hope that we can get our congressman on board and let's do this for the veterans. Because we don't know what the veterans are going to need in 10 years. All the guys come back from Afghanistan and Iraq. You know, some of these guys spent 2-3 tours overseas. We don't know what they're going to need. Look at our Vietnam veterans right now. Look at some of our World War II veterans. They need it. And I think it's not rocket science. Let's leave it for the veterans. That's what it was there for.
Any thought? Dr. Metzger, 1 minute.
By the way, I want to make welcome home, first time public, is my chief of staff. He just got back from Iraq. I just recently went up to Perryville the other day. If you've ever been to Perryville and seen what they're doing up there right now, it makes your heart sink for what's taking place. Our veterans deserve better. Our veterans deserve what they're doing in Perryville. The houses up there in Perryville are right now being renovated for guess who? Our veterans that are homeless and are needing it. We need to do the same thing here. And the next first time I see Congressman Rupesberger, I am going to address that eyeball to eyeball. There's no reason what's taking place in Fort Howard cannot take place as it is up there in Perryville.
Thanks, Delegate. Senator Selly.
Just real quick, I want it for the veterans, period. It was for the veterans. That's what it was all about in the first place. So if we can do something for the veterans, I'm for it.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. It seems that public safety is our next round of questions. Could one of the speakers please give me direction as to where I can take a public safety issue that I want to have a bill drafted and sponsored? Who'd like to take this one? Delegate Grammer?
I mean, you can call my office. I'd be happy to talk with you. Especially the bills. Let me step back here. We oversee the state government and the state agencies. So a lot of times there are laws in place which kind of prevent us from telling what local agencies to do. But you know, if you, I'm working on a couple of local bills that really aren't hashed out yet for just constituent concerns, and they're asking for things. So if you have a bill request, I'd be happy to help out. I'm sure the other gentleman would as well.
And same thing, call my office. Your concerns are really important. If there's state, we can address them. We can do all we can. If they're county, we can go to our county councilman and see what more we can do to help you out. In other ways, in any way, shape, or form, whatever the concern is, call us, because that's why we're here. Thank you.
Anyone else care to respond? 1 minute rebuttal? All right, we'll go to the next question. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we have these index cards with the hopes of trying to keep things moving along so we can get out of here and we don't have all of you sitting in one place for quite some period of time. Next question. Do you support groups of people who take the law into their own hands and also bully community leaders? Who'd like to tackle this one? Senator?
No.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone else care to add, weigh in? Delegate Metzger?
No place for vigilantes.
I think we're all on the same page here.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
No place for vigilantes.
Speaking of crime, we have a marijuana question here. If marijuana is legalized, how do you plan to address the anticipated rise in crime? Delegate Grammer?
So this is one of the issues I was actually hoping to speak about, and really you kind of have to look at an issue in context of where you're at right now and what the problems are that are coming down the pipe. Am I on? Am I off? Can you hear me? Okay. So here's where we are with marijuana right now. It is legal to sell marijuana or let's say cannabis products, because it's not just marijuana. You can sell cannabis products for the treatment of medicinal purposes. And the licensure, it isn't an actual license, the permitting process is done through the state. You get a card, and you go to your local dispensary, and there are 2 dispensaries for each senatorial district by law. There are two dispensaries for our district. I don't think either one of them is open at the time, but they will be opening soon. So you have a product which is illegal federally, for better or for worse, whatever your opinion is on the issue. It is a it's a Schedule I controlled dangerous substance. And the state of Maryland has essentially nullified federal law, and they're gonna be moving cannabis products. So I was working with the Berkshire folks, and they introduced me to one of the gentlemen who owns the local dispensaries, and I started talking to this guy, and I just to figure out what's going on here. And through some conversations, what we found is the state and the county aren't really communicating at all on this. The local jurisdictions have, for the most part, just been left to kind of train and prepare their employees and agencies for something that hasn't been done legally in a long time. So I backed up and I said to myself, whoa, that's really the next thing we need to do here is, you've got all this crime issues in the city, and it tends to be political. One people are on the side and they're saying cops are beating the heck out of people, and the other people are saying, well, cops are just trying to enforce the law. But what needs to happen right now is that local law enforcement needs to understand what the state laws are. They need to understand the process of how a person comes to be given access to these products, what to do if you pull someone over, hey, I'm a cop, you're speeding, I pull you over, and you just happen to have a cannabis product in your car, but for the state of Maryland, that's legal. It's illegal federally. What do you do? Nobody has answered that question for law enforcement. And as crazy as that sounds, unless you tackle that, that's going to be the state of the union. So one of the bills I'm putting forward this year, and I apologize for not being able to, not running out of time and not talking about this, is to require training for local law enforcement and state law enforcement for what is essentially a new industry in pretty much a unique time. Now, like I said, in this district, I think a lot of people have a lot of difference of opinion on marijuana, but I think what we can all agree on is if it's going to be sold at all, law enforcement needs to have a clear understanding about what the state laws are and how to differentiate between someone who's permitted and someone who's not, to really just kind of prepare them for what's coming down the pike.
Long 1 minute rebuttal?
Yes, well, it's not a rebuttal, but I'm on Ways and Means. Last year I heard a bill about what they're going to do with the taxes generated from legalized marijuana. I'll sit there and listen for 2 hours, and I didn't hear 2 things mentioned. One is treatment for the people that are hooked on heroin, and 2 is education. We're talking about a lot of money coming into this state. That should be the first priority, is to educate our younger kids not to do drugs. Drugs are bad. Anyway, I plan on, if it does come up on the floor, I'm going to introduce an amendment to make sure that we fully fund education. Everybody remembers DARE? We have to make sure our younger children are prepared and know what the consequences are. I know there's a difference of opinion about marijuana. Myself personally, I'm against it. I come up through the 70s, 60s, and I remember seeing a lot of friends of mine, and you could tell they were potheads. Maybe the marijuana is different now, I'm not sure, but I knew coming up as a kid, you could tell somebody had been doing pot for a while because they got slow. And one of my concerns are, if they're smoking marijuana and they're behind the wheel driving, their motor skills have to be reduced. They cannot act, that's my personal opinion. I'm not sure, but that to me, from all the studies and everything I've seen, your motor skills are reduced when you're under the influence of marijuana. Anyway, talking about the Baltimore City Police and crime, actually my future son-in-law is a Baltimore City cop. One of the things we need to do is get behind our police officers. They have a tough time, especially in Baltimore City or Baltimore County. We don't have enough cops down here, that's for sure. I think we have a lot bigger fish to fry than worried about marijuana. Well, we'll deal with it. But anyway, if you have any questions, let me know.
All right.
Yes, Senator?
Just real fast, one of the things that I didn't have opportunity to say is that this is a very contentious, issue. So I think one of the biggest issues, I guess you can say, is we want to work with the communities, and we want them to work with the communities for the dispensaries, for the location and how they're run. To me, placement is a big issue. We want to make sure they're in the right place. We don't want them in the middle of a community. We don't want them around school. We don't want them around our kids. We want them at the proper area. So if they're gonna have something like this, which they will, location is important. So we want to push that issue. So thank you.
Yeah. Delegate Mesker, writing on the marijuana issue?
Just real brief. I don't know if you paid attention or not, but the other day, California just made recreational marijuana legal. I fear that what is taking place in our state, is this is just an open door for the gateway to recreational. I have to tell you, I am totally against marijuana of any kind. You've ever had some family members that are compulsive disorder? That runs the same way. I am against it, and I'll say it from the pulpit right here, that I am against any sort of paraphernalia, marijuana whatsoever. Until the FDA approves it. It's not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, by the way.
Thank you, Delegate. Will you please support bills for enhanced school vision screenings, eye examinations for incarcerated youth for the legislative session? Delegate Mesker, you want to lead this one off?
Yes, last year I co-sponsored a bill for vision, and yes, vision at an early age can change a person's life. There was some children that came to testify in HDO that were diagnosed as attention deficit disorder. Come to find out, they had a visionary problem. They got the visionary problem and their health problem went away.
That's been a major problem in our schools. They want to label our kids all the time. And it's an issue, and it should be an issue with every parent. There's times when kids do need help, but the proper label is very important. Every kid is an ADHD or ADD or anything like that. But I've met some of the parents also in my committee, Education, Health, and Environment. And we met those parents and some of the kids and their concerns. And that's really important to make sure that the kids get the proper attention that they need. If they're not getting it, we're missing the ball. So that's so important.
Delegate Long, you wish to weigh in on this?
Real quick, we actually had a bill last year dealing with this. Some kids have vision problems. One of the problems is monovision, which I have. One of your eyes see far, one sees see up close. I can't remember exactly what the status of that bill was, but there was a lady there, and it was for our committee that talked about children having learning disabilities. Once they got their eye vision straightened out, everything, they turned around. A lot of kids were acting out because they couldn't see the boards. But, we're fully supportive. What was that question? Something about incarcerated?
Would you support bills for enhanced school vision screenings for eye exams for incarcerated youth for a legislative session?
I wouldn't have no problem with that. Anything we do to keep recidivism, we'll do. We don't want to see anybody keep going back to jail. And I think a lot of the problems, like I said, it's simple. It's a vision test. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Delegate Grant, wish to weigh in?
I don't think that's a real big hurdle to support. One thing I will say is I think it's just beholden, I think it's really a benefit to everybody to talk about funding. That's a brand new program. That's going to be a new set of funding. What most people don't realize is things like basics, like school construction. How about renovation for water or HVAC in schools? How many schools yesterday failed and their heat failed, and you just have a 16-degree school? We haven't funded anything in education, and that's just school construction. That's just capital funding. How about operational costs? The formulas for education are dictated primarily in law, and none of them are funded. So I don't think it's a real big hurdle for anybody to support a benefit like that. But I pay real attention to the politics behind spending, because frankly, we haven't done a proper job at living up to our mandates, and that certainly hasn't served us here on the east side for at least 30 years. So.
Thank you, Delegate. What can you do to add to the verbiage to the emergency petition for psychiatric crisis to include someone currently under the influence of drugs? It's like Nacian is a great idea, but we need to aid them by treatment, which is a drug addict, could be a psychiatric condition, as well as to include mandatory treatment.
Read that one more time, please.
Sure. What can you do to add to the additional verbiage of emergency petition for psychiatric crisis to include someone currently under the influence of drugs? It's a great idea, but we need to aid them by treatment, which is a drug addiction, which can be a psychiatric condition, to get mandatory treatment. Delegate Grammer, once again.
Would the person who wrote that allow me for a little clarification? Is that?
Right there.
That's me.
Okay, so
Okay.
there's an emergent, let me ask, and I think I got it.
Okay.
So there's a petition for a law change in a case that someone is addicted, probably a hard drug, that another person can kind of take decision-making power and admit them. Okay, could you clarify for me?
Okay. You have emergency petitions. If you know that your family member has a psychiatric condition, and you know that they're manic or something,
Okay.
you can call 911. 911 comes and assesses it, calls the ambulance, which they are mandatory hold for.
Everybody can hear you. You say that.
It's a mandatory hold for 72 hours in an
Okay.
ER for assessment. Is there any verbiage that we can add, because drug addiction is also considered obsession, and it could be considered as a psychiatric condition.
Sure.
But you see somebody that is suffering from drug addiction, oh my God, I'm nervous. Okay, drug addiction, and they're currently under the influence.
Right.
They're not gonna voluntarily sit there and go into drug treatment. We
Right.
have Narcan. Baltimore County has implemented Narcan training, which I went to, and that's a Band-Aid. So they're not gonna voluntarily go for drug treatment, but can we add that verbiage to include drug abuse or to
I think
that?
it's something we could probably work on.
Right.
We'd have to start to.
Because that's where all the crime,
Right.
it's not
You have-
marijuana.
Absolutely.
It's
You have an
the hard
addict
drugs.
and they're driven by the addiction. and
Absolutely.
I get it. If you want, pick up a card and we'll talk and we'll
Okay.
see what we can do. And there's a lot of discussion about that. People don't really get how big the opioid problem is. I have two of my best friends from my youth died to a heroin addiction. I have a cousin who's addicted to heroin. I have a member of my family who's addicted to an opioid painkiller. I mean, it's radically bigger than.
It all stems from the physicians.
Right.
It starts at the physicians, which they're taking care of now, I
Right.
understand that. But that has led from being addicted to pain medicine
Absolutely.
to going to bigger and better things.
Right. There are a lot of discussions about, so let's talk about that and dig into that a little bit more and see what we can figure out.
Can I respond? Delegate Messer?
Yes, ma'am, I just wanted to say that we had a hearing on this very same thing. There is a study going on that they're supposed to report back to our committee this year in HGO, because the verbiage that you're talking about is just very, very important, and it stems again from the opioid addiction, from when the doctors were prescribing and people were going doctor shopping and getting opioids from one doctor to the next. That stems from the doctors even prescribing themselves doctor shopping, and can you imagine going to a doctor that's hooked on drugs?
Thank you, Delegate. Our next set of questions deal with infrastructure. A new bridge over Bear Creek and North Point Road with sidewalks. Who'd like to discuss this? A new bridge over Bear Creek and North Point Road with sidewalks. Senator Saley?
A lot of people that live on North Point Road, that live in Sparrows Point, walking down the areas, there is a lot of areas that need sidewalk. In your area, anybody in this area, in the room, say we need sidewalks in your area, exactly. I know it's more than one location. And there are issues that I know that we've talked with the county council, and we've talked with the other legislators, and seeing how we can go about to make sure we can get more sidewalks in our areas. It's important. There was an issue down in Miller's Island where there were kids standing in the road waiting for a bus. I got a serious problem with that. And I think they should be areas where they can be safe, not standing in the road. So I think that area is important, and we need to look at that. But there's many more areas that we've talked about. And there are issues from one part of North Point Road to the other end, going down North Point Boulevard to the other part of North Point Road. And there are issues. But make sure you realize the measurements now have changed for new sidewalks. They gotta be 5 feet wide. So they're gonna probably take yard from people, and there's gonna people that are gonna be a little bit upset about that. So, but it's important more than anything that we get some of the areas, we get some sidewalks. You know, it's important to me, and I know it's important to you. So I hope that answers your question.
Delegate Long?
I know about the bridge you're talking about. I'm fully supportive, but that's a county issue. The county's gonna have to pony up and pay for that. I know that bridge floods out quite often. Actually, this year, we had State Highway Administration come down and remove some debris in front of the culvert that the water drains through, goes across North Point Boulevard out to the outfall. Because I know that that bridge always overflows it. I think they got a stick-up area that goes up to 4 or 5 feet high. And I know it could be critical to patients going to John Hopkins. So we did reach out to State Highway. They did come down, they cleaned out the area. Hopefully they'll take care of it. If we can get a new bridge down there, I'm all for it. I mean, with sidewalks, I don't see a problem with that. But that's more of a county issue.
Delegate Long, Delegate Kramer, Delegate Metzger. Okay, dovetailing with that, when will Turner Station have complete sidewalks? Delegate Kramer?
So this was the response I was going to give to the last question, but I'll give it to this question. There's always a big misunderstanding about how things come to be appropriated. And elected reps, lawmakers, oftentimes do have an opportunity to put money for specific things. But in most cases, for funding for especially things like roads or bridges, there tends to be a pool of money that gets appropriated in the bigger picture of a budget, and then the agency itself drives spending. For something like sidewalks so local roads, the agency is going to drive that. For a bridge that may become a state issue, we have a little bit of leeway. But frankly, most of the requests we've made, you go to the MDOT or SHA or whomever the state agency is, and they say, well, we appreciate your feedback, but let me tell you why your district is getting this particular project. And you know, a lot of that has been really good information. I'll give you a brief example. One of the changes that was made in our district was on Route 40 over in Russ's area, and it was an intersection where you just had chronic fatalities. And they talked about the fatalities over the years, and it was a median that was being eliminated in one spot, and another one being put in another spot, and an intersection being put there, and kind of say, well, that makes sense. Another big one's like Edgemere. Edgemere, there's pretty much one way in, one way out, and they've been wanting sidewalks, not only for the school kids in the morning, but for the elderly. Someone came to me one day with a picture of an elderly lady who had just fallen, and her face got all bruised up. And you know, if I could push a button to get that, I would, but a lot of that discretion goes to the county executive. So if it's something like that, you have a sidewalk project, a bridge, a road, anything, reach out to us and we'd be happy to talk about it. But oftentimes, by law, we don't have the direct authority to do that, but we can start that discussion.
Either gentleman care to comment? Doug Long?
I just want to clarify that North Point Road is a county road, it's not a state. So it's up to the county executive, and we'll push for it if he'll do it. I don't have no problem with that.
Excuse me, can I add to your point? I'd like everybody to realize that I've personally spoken to the county engineers, and to add to your point, there is an environmental element to what you just stated. It's not just as simple for us to say we wish to have, okay, sidewalks. Sidewalks require curb and gutter, and curb and gutter requires environmental studies because there's something called storm water management runoff. And because of the fact that the majority of our communities are within, okay, the 1,000-foot critical bay area, we are under stringent federal requirements to adhere to. So please be advised, when we say we need sidewalks, it's just not that simple as if you lived in Ruxton or if you lived in Towson because of the environmental constraints. I just want to add that so everybody realizes there's more to this picture than simply Mr. Kaminitz or Mr. whoever or Mr. anybody. We have the federal laws and the critical bay areas.
That's a great point.
Thank you.
Thank you. And speaking of more bridges, someone had asked about the Upper Bay crossing, a must for the Chesapeake Bay, an Upper Bay crossing. Delegate Grammer?
Upper Bay Crossing, okay. So, so everybody understands what we're talking about here. So, the agency, Maryland Department of Transportation, they're always looking at the big picture. You know, where's traffic going? Where is it congested? What do we need to do to plan for X over the next 10, 15, 20 years? Even before Governor Hogan was elected, the MDOT thought and continues to think that there is a need for an Upper Bay crossing. And so what they've done is they've put together this big, I think it's like a 4-phase study, where in phases, they kind of do research and get comments and put together a plan for a new crossing over the Chesapeake Bay from our neck of the woods to the Eastern Shore. Governor Hogan actually, I think it was last year sometime, he made a statement and he was like, you know, I like the idea of not just expanding transportation across the Bay Bridge, but potentially making a link from somewhere in Baltimore County to somewhere on the Eastern Shore. So that kind of makes sense, maybe. You might want to give, it would alleviate some of the traffic from the Bay Bridge. It would certainly give access to, let's say, if someone wanted to drive from Carroll County to Cecil County, it might give them more direct access than just another span on the Bay Bridge. But that fight, if they decide to bring that here, is going to be one of the nastiest fights you would ever expect to see. Because let's think about where you're going to put that. And frankly, it's mostly in our district. You're going to maybe put a bridge in Chase, or you put a bridge down 702, or you put a bridge Edgemere, Fort Howard, or you put a bridge Sparrows Point. And that's if it comes to our neck of the woods. But you look at a map and there aren't too many options. So I've been following that. Everybody should follow that and watch, because agencies kind of just, they tend to get their own agenda, and you know, they make suggestions and they have comment periods, but after they've made a decision, they like to try and push that agenda. And I know a lot of people around this room from a lot of different parts of our district and the county, but I can't think of anybody who wants a bridge in Fort Howard Edgemere, or down 702 in Essex, or in Chase, wherever you would connect that. So that's, I think, a fight everybody in this room is probably going to be on the same side on, and the best thing I could say really is to stay tuned for that. Not going to happen this year.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a new issue. I can tell you back in the 70s, they had talked about having a bridge from Chase over to Betterton. So this is something that is not new. And we have more bridge questions. Southbound 695, there's no exit to the south side of Dundalk from the Turner Station area.
That's our grammar. Our resident engineer.
So, when we first got elected, you know, four new guys, you start to take stock of what is going on in the community. You get exposed to different problems. You know, I live in Essex, so a lot of my personal experience is Essex Middle River. I have family down here in Dundalk, and I know their areas of Dundalk more than I know all of Dundalk. And one of the things I started to talk to the community leaders there, and they would chronically talk about like trucks in the community. They would say like, there's another damn truck driver and I'd have to shoo him off with a broom and tell him he can't go down there. And what's happening, you know, this area is an old area, it's a developed area, it's near a ton of adjacent old industry, and a lot of that has a lot to do with logistics and getting products from one point to the next. We're also right next to the Port of Baltimore. I mean, several minutes away from the Port of Baltimore. And here's the problem, and I keep talking about this, and frankly, it's like economics or history. You start to talk about it, and people just kind of fall asleep. What's happening is, if you're a truck driver and you're coming out of the port, and you just want to get on the state highway, the shortest path to get onto the state highway is just to zap down Vernon Highway and get on 695. Well, if you do that, you pay a toll. And if you're a truck driver, your interest, if you're a truck driver, you're trying to pull 4 to 6 loads a day to make a paycheck. And that means you'd be getting banged each way for a toll. It's not the $3 or $4 toll you or I pay, it's the $10 toll. $10 toll each way.
One way.
One way.
One way stuff.
Well, that's right, it's one way, okay. So you're getting hit 4, 5, 6 times at a toll every day. And if you're an owner operator, you're paying your own tolls. So what do you do? If you're an out-of-state driver and you have a GPS and you say, get on a state road, but you hit that little ignore tolls button, what happens? Well, what happens is people end up driving right here through Dundalk, and it's impacting Turner Station and communities which are literally right here. Del Vale, and you come back down and you get on Merritt. Nobody's doing that. There was a gentleman who posted a video right here on Solers at the intersection where you go take Merritt all the way down to the end, and it was a tractor trailer which was literally stuck because he couldn't get over the curb. And when he tried to back up, he just knocked over all the county road signs. It was terrible. Well, that is because if you live in Old Dundalk, you can't get on a state road without paying a toll. And it's not just commercial traffic. You know, I started talking about this, and people came to me, of course, on the side, and they would say, God, thanks for talking about that. I live, you know, they live in these communities over here. They'd say, I'll drive through Dundalk before I pay that damn toll every day to get back and forth to work. And it's one of, you know, people don't like, again, people get stuck in the kind of controversies and the battle of politics, but when you talk about like transportation planning, this is one of the things people kind of expect. Yeah, and it's harming Turner Station and the ABC Street, St. Helena. They literally have to pay a toll just to get on the highway. So we had some of the members from Turner Station come down last year. We passed a bill. Legally, we cannot, here's the problem with anything that relates to a toll, how much you pay at a toll. Legally, you cannot change the amount of, the dollar amount which the agency charges for a toll every time you pass through. The state of Maryland has delegated authority to the agency to set their own rates. And there are trust agreements in every contract that they signed which say if you do anything to breach this trust agreement and offer free passage, then your agency is going to be legally in question, which really hamstrings us to do anything legislatively. Now that's, the politics in that go a lot deeper and wider than anybody really realize. But that is an issue that I have a extensive history of the issue and a giant ledger at home. I don't think we're done with that. You know, speaking to the people at Turner Station and everybody here in this end of Dundalk who doesn't have access to an immediate entrance onto 695, we're still looking at that, and that battle's gonna come back up.
Real quick, back in 2010, we talked about this. Actually, the former delegates and the senator, we talked very extensively about this using the turnaround underneath Key Bridge. I kept getting told that they couldn't do it. I kept asking why, and every time they come up with an answer or a question, I answered their question. They said the bridge was too low, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're using the turnaround underneath the Key Bridge. And the governor did reduce the toll there. It's only $10 right now. At one time, it was full, you had to pay full fare. And you only pay $10 one way, and you can come out, come back down to the Turner Station, or back into the port. If everybody remembers how the tolls went up overnight, that was back in 2010, I believe, when Martin Malley was the governor. The governor's come out and cut tolls by 25%, lowered them by $1. They also changed that and the Child Street down in off the Harbor Tunnel, so they could use that turnaround. This has been a big issue, we know. Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good.
My name is Linwood Jackson. I live in Turner Station.
Yes, sir.
I have the last house, the very last house before you get to the Key Bridge. Sit on my porch, you can see the emergency turnaround. Here is the problem. The problem is that the GPS on the truck driver's truck can't tell them the difference between Main Street and Turner Station and Braun Highway.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And what happens every time a truck comes down to Turner Station and get all the way down to where the police academy is, it tear all our cable lines and our gas and electric lines out.
Maybe we need to get a hold of people that actually do the GPS, because I know what you're saying, that's what happens down here at Solomon Point, they get lost.
But here's the issue. The issue is that Turner Station right now is a target. When you sit in Turner Station, only thing you can see now is Trade Point. And the shortest distance between the port and Trade Port is to come through Turner Station. Because year before last, we got a letter from the Baltimore County, right, that they were gonna cut a hole through Silas Point Road and Main Street so that when the trucks come, they can come through there. Also, they were talking about making a new exit 44 off of the Key Bridge. Now, this is the only thing that I'm saying to my elected officials, right? Is that some of these things are just a little bigger than just sitting here talking about it. You gotta come to the community, you gotta tour the community, you gotta understand what the people go through. Because once they knock our electric out and our cable out, then it's hours and days before it's restored.
I agree.
On that same point, and I spoke to you and a couple of delegates before. Turner Station on the road, on the side of the road, where they put the new barrier that runs from the Key Bridge all the way up to Logan, right? The state put a sidewalk all the way from Dundalk, all the way down to Turner Station. And once they got to Main Street, they cut it off. Now the people in Turner Station, once you get past Silas Point Road, they have to walk in the middle of the road. The transit bus put them off in the middle of the road.
I know we've talked about that.
And I just think, and I believe that since it's on state property, because the county keeps saying it's not our responsibility, the state says it's not our responsibility, right? But we need to continue that road down there and put sidewalks down there. It's not rocket science here.
Right, I understand, I know what you're talking about, the bus stop, we're actually looking into that to make sure, because we were talking about the water, they let the people off and they have to get out of the water. I'm on top of that, we're talking to the state highway and also the MTA.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing is, one of the things we can do is put up a sign up there that no trucks should be on Main Street. I mean, a big sign, no trucks.
They got one.
Well, then we need to put a light around it, we need to do
We need
something.
more police to police the place, is what we need, and we don't have the money for that. Where can we get more money for our police?
Well, we need money for our police for other things also, and, enforcement, I'm not sure will take care of it. The truck drivers are not going to, the truck drivers, I drove track and trail for 15 years. Last thing you want to do is get lost with track and trail. Believe me, it's not fun. Believe me, I've had to back up 2 miles because I got on the wrong road, and it's not fun. You can't turn around all the time. We want to make sure that those signs can be seen, and maybe we can talk to the people that put the GPS together and let them know that we have a problem there Because I know they're coming up Sellers Point, and what happened is they're supposed to go down to Merritt Boulevard and come up, and they're come up making a right-hand turn before they're supposed to, trying to come down.
And you're absolutely right. The problem is that once they come and turn the station and they come down Main Street, get over to the end, they see the emergency turnaround underneath the Key Bridge and assume that they can go under it. And once they start there, they realize that they can't go under it, they can't back up, so they jackknife in the middle of the road, right, tear up the church parking lot, tear the cable line, the gas electric line, and they leave. When you come home and you say, well, did I pay my gas and electric bill? What's going on here?
Well, we're gonna look into that. We should make sure there's a big sign up there. If it has to have flashing lights or whatever it is, I think it's a pretty easy fix. I know from my experience, I don't wanna get lost in there, because I've been there and it's not fun.
Senator Selly?
Just real quick, we had legislation, we introduced this to exempt the pay for commuting from Browning Highway under the Key Bridge, okay? And we had a meeting, myself and the chairman for Budget and Tax, with the Board of Transportation. And we met with them, and it's been an issue for a long period of time. But we brought it to their attention that people are paying a toll where they're not going over a bridge. And that was the push. But they make, that is a toll road. That is their emphasis. It's a toll road. My emphasis was, I can take 95 and go to the very last exit, and I don't have to pay a penny. But you're gonna go on a toll road, and they're gonna make you pay $10. They didn't know what to say. So we had a lot of angry senators and delegates that brought that to their attention. And we haven't stopped yet because it is an issue. It's an issue for the port. It's gonna be a major issue for Trayport Atlantic. We're gonna make sure that we try our best, because that's all we can do, to fight this fight and to do what's right, because the truck drivers are just trying to make a living. We want to help them out, as the delegate said.
Anyone care to comment on that one? Okay, let's go on to Public Works. There is no natural gas line in a lot of places in our area, particularly Edgemere. So obviously, the Public Works need to be contacted so that people wish to have natural gas can have natural gas in these areas. Which one of you like to kick off this discussion? Delegate Long?
You have to have a petition. I don't think there is a main gas line goes down North Point Road, I believe. In order to get it to your community and to your other houses, you have to have, I think, over 75% of the people sign up for it. That means you have to change your heat over, your stove, your hot water heater. It's pretty expensive. Plus you have to pay a plumber to bring it in. I have a heat pump. I know one of my neighbors wanted to bring gas down there, and when you start thinking about the cost, it's not cost effective. But I'm 99.9% sure there's a main gas line goes right down North Point Road, all the way down to Fort Howard. But anyway. You're correct. I'm sorry? Yeah, I am correct. I kind of knew, well, so in order to get that back to your community, you have to have your community do a petition or do something, sign up. You have to have over 75% of the people participate. So just beware that when you do that, you bring gas in your house, you have to replace your heating unit, your hot water tank, and your stove. It could be very expensive.
We contacted BG&E, and they told us that you have to have a petition of the people, you have to have 75%
Right.
of the people.
Right.
However, they get back to you and tell you how much it's gonna cost each house
Right.
in your community.
It's gonna
because
cost you money.
You have to pay to have the line run,
Right.
then you have to pay
A plumber.
to have the connection.
I understand. That's why it's not cost effective. If you have a good heat pump, we have a heat pump. If it's size right for the house, it works. And, you know, just put it on a certain degree, 72 degrees, and leave it alone, it works.
So I guess the question is, what legislation can you introduce in Annapolis, okay, to bring money back to this area here to promote that kind of infrastructural development in these areas that do not have the social equity that the new developments do have?
Senator Selly?
Let me try my best. I guess the best thing to do is find out other areas how they did that and work through that way. Find out areas maybe in Edgemere or Essex or Middle River and talk with them and see how that was, how that came about. And maybe working through that way to find out, see how we can do that also. And minimize cost. I think there's gonna be cost, and maybe we can minimize that so it won't devastate an individual that's trying to get gas in
Well, it's
there.
interesting you bring that up, because maybe what we can do is a tax incremental funding like we wish to do down here at Trade Point Atlantic to improve their infrastructure with roads and pipelines and gas lines and sewage and water lines. And we could say, what we could do is borrow the money here through bonds, okay, improve, and then once those improvements are done, just like down at Trade Point, then we could start paying the incremental tax back on those bonds.
I think you answered that for yourself. I mean, it's true. There's ways that we can do this because there's way they've already have done it. And I think the way we can go back down is to see how they've done it before and how we can do that also. I hope that helps you.
Well, would the same thing work for the sidewalks?
I guess it's something we can look into also. Because again, I mean, to me, as I said, that's a major issue. And we really need to address those issues. And I mean, that's more than anything for our kids, but for seniors too. So
Okay, can Karen answer that? Okay. Another public works question. Put a sewer plant at Sparrows Point so we don't have to pump 15 miles uphill to East Point.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Put a sewer plant at Sparrows Point so we don't have to pump it uphill to East Point 15 miles away. Done long?
The sewer actually runs down through Sparrows Point. Sparrows Point treats the influence. It comes out of Back River Treatment Plant and comes down to Sparrows Point. It comes out two places, Old Bay, and I believe at the end of Sparrows Point, down where the old shipyard was. That's monitored. I really don't like it, but it's been there, and I don't think there was anything we can do about it. One thing, the upgrade of the sewer plant in Essex, they're going to start taking even more nutrients and more contaminants out of the water. I was there when the governor actually when they did the groundbreaking. There are going to be two big tanks there to catch all the overflow, because what's happening right now, because the infrastructure's leaking, when a torrential downpour comes through, it gets into the sanitary sewer lines and it's taken down the Back River. They don't have the facility, it's not capable of handling all that sewage when we have a big storm. Whether it's Baltimore City, Baltimore County, it gets into the infrastructure. So they're going to put two big holding tanks up there to take care of the intermittent overflow. So once the storm is over with, they'll treat all that. And
Senator Selling?
all the secondary water would go down there when they had thousands of people that worked down there. And it was a problem, because a major problem for Fort Howard and some of their area. So what they had to do is they had to divert the water to other areas. So it would cause major problems. And that's what they've done. What they need to continue to do is find other ways where they can still minimize the water. But they will have to bring other water down there when it continues to build. When more businesses come, when more workers are there, they're gonna have to build that back up. How much more, I don't know, but in time, we will find out eventually. But again, you think about the things that were running down in Bethlehem Steel and all the water that they needed for cool down water. Personally, I know that because I worked down there, and a lot of people here did too. So all that secondary water that they had down there, they used it for very good reasons.
Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying, all your building treatment.
Yeah.
All right, a couple recycling questions. If there's no recycling on Monday, due to Monday being a holiday, what are the chances of recycling pickup the next day?
I hope they do it. Not just to say, I think that what they need to do is to reschedule on holidays, for instance, they can reschedule that for you, so they can get the recycle. I recycle constantly. I think it's important that everybody does that, but if you don't do that, I'm trying to encourage you. But I think we can reschedule that to whatever day that you get that day, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because I know they're different. Maybe one day that week, they can reschedule it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's 2 weeks now that we don't have pickup for recycle.
You're right.
This coming Monday will be 3 weeks.
Let's see what we can do to work with our sanitation engineers and see what we
But
can do.
there's
to help
no
them out.
reason why they can't come back the next day and pick it up. They do it for trash. So people are putting their recycle out for trash now because it's too much for them to handle. This happens every holiday, it's on a Monday.
You're right. That's why we need to work with them and see if we can reschedule that for maybe the following day.
And who do you call to get the bridge at the, Bear Creek on North Point Road? You said it's a county problem, but why aren't you as politicians working to service the community? There was 4.5 feet of water there the day the fire truck got stuck. I'm sorry, that was 3.5 feet that day. The highest point of level there was 4.5 feet. I had the signs put in. I had street lights put in for the people. There's trees blocking the street lights, and the property owners need to cut their trees so that people can walk along the road there.
Mr. Seaman, is that you?
You're welcome.
Good to talk.
I also put in a lot of those other things that the gentleman read to you about
Good.
they're necessary for the community. to have.
Absolutely.
We've been neglected here.
Absolutely. The answer to that is you have to convince the county to reprioritize its spending. I think the bigger question about trash is pickups twice a week. I think the biggest thing that's disserviced us is that we don't have more pickups for actual trash. And that's led to a lot of the rat problems. And that applies not only to our trash pickup, which is a county procurement issue, but stormwater investment, which is related to what you have on your property, what the problems your neighbor has on his property, and the problems at the bridge. You're absolutely right. This area especially has been not so focused on, whether you're talking about trash or water runoff. And that needs to change at the county level.
Yeah, they used to have 2 pickups, and that's why the rat problem occurred.
In a large way,
And
you're
they
right.
penalize the people too much for not having a lid on a trash can. They come around whenever they put the trash out and penalize them because they have a bag, because the trash can gets blown away. They don't put the trash cans back in the yards or put the lids back on, and they're penalizing the people too much for a problem that the trash man has caused to begin with.
Right. Well, it's not the trash man. It's the elected. It's the investment. You know, people expect the fundamental services of government. Picking up trash is pretty commonsensical. It's become a public health issue here throughout Baltimore County. Frankly, the great thing of what's happened is that a lot of community associations have advocated for this. They got a pilot program put in place for investment in that. We're seeing a lot of communities, I think most of them are here in southeastern Baltimore County that are operating that, and they've seen a lot of positive outcomes. And I think that's something that needs to continue, whether you're talking about trash pickup or stormwater remediation or code enforcement, because a lot of that, especially, like what does code enforcement have, like 30 or 40 people for the entire county? People expect first and foremost the fundamentals of local government. So I agree with a lot of what you said
Maybe
there.
they have too many inspectors.
I don't think they have enough, because people are crying out for code enforcement, and they're just so short-staffed or weeks out.
Some things we have to learn to accept too.
Thank you, Delegate.
Can I just?
Thank
On the 4th of July, numerous injuries are occurred by fireworks. I know one youngster who had fireworks in a glass jar. His face is badly scarred. Another almost lost his finger on a sparkler. A law needs to be enacted in Baltimore County prohibiting the sale and use of fireworks, as Baltimore City has done. This would reduce calls for service to our police and fire department. Who would like to address this? Delegate Long?
I'll never say that I put off fireworks as a kid, because I did firecrackers. It is a law. I think you're only allowed to have sprinklers. Anything that they sell out alongside the road, you can have. Anything with explosive or gunpowder is against the law throughout the state, not just the county, but throughout the state. Unfortunately, you can go right across the Maryland line to Pennsylvania and buy whatever you want. Parents have to be more responsible for letting their kids get into this. And that's one of the problems we're having, not only in schools. Parents have to start being parents again.
Thank you.
And they have to be taught that there are consequences.
Stop looking to the
Anyone else can
government.
address this one?
Address the problems in their own home. I
Okay.
don't think it will go away.
How would you address the increased health care premiums which have occurred recently, in which I saw a 100% increase? Senator Selling?
Repeal the Obama Health Care Act. Yeah. Bottom line, it's gotta be repealed. It's something that has caused a lot of problems with individuals, with businesses, and with just about anybody, unless you depend upon the state. It's a matter of fact that people that work and work hard, especially the middle class, they are subject to paying more than anybody else. And it's a major problem. So if you repeal that health care act, you can find other ways to making sure that the middle class is not held accountable and not responsible for everybody else's Medicare. I think a long time ago, you didn't have to, I'd say probably over 8, 9 years ago, you did not have to pay when you go to a hospital. The hospital, the specialist, and every other part, after you were done 4 or 5 times, you had one payment. Now, you have 4 or 5 payments. Why? Because you gotta pay a specialist, because you gotta pay the x-rays, because you gotta pay everything else. That's why right now, I believe it's broke. When you have a medical card, and you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, that card should, when you go to the hospital, when you go see your doctor, your patient first, wherever you go, it should take care of it all. You should be held accountable paying 5 or 6 different payments. It's a major problem. And I think that's one of the major problems.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you this, that our health care is in a real crisis. Just because you see things, I need to tell you this. I heard out of his mouth from the CEO of Blue Cross and Blue Shield, probably have a year, maybe 2 years left of Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We only have about 2 carriers, 3 carriers at the most. You have Kaiser, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and Cigna, I believe, just recently pulled out. Folks, this healthcare crisis is still a crisis, and we need to really begin to, as a community, as a people, talk to our federal elected officials, because we need to really get down to the brass knuckles of this. It's a deep, deep trouble. As you know, I don't have to tell you, when you look at what your insurance paid and what you have to pay, how many gets those things in the mail that said, this is not a bill? Well, my mother-in-law gets it all the time. They said, honey, they paid me this or paid that, but I got to pay this. Ladies and gentlemen, it has gone up of what you're having to pay and what they pay. So it's a crisis that is still boiling. It's a soft boil right now, but I'm telling you folks, it's gonna rise back up.
Anyone else got a comment on healthcare? Okay. Has the governor or the comptroller proposed changes to the tax system to offset federal changes? That's one question. And the follow-up is, will the Democrats in the General Assembly go along with this? Delegate Long?
Yes, he has. The only people that's going to be hurt if you pay more than $10,000 in property taxes, then you'll see an increase. I have all the talking points on tax reform and the job creation that the president has put through. I'm telling you what, you're going to see it in your paychecks in February. When you go to file your taxes, you're going to see it. The double child care, I mean, there's all kind of things in here. Like if you start picking, like I said, if you start picking things out, it doesn't look good. They were talking about taking away your mortgages. That's all still in there. It's a business-friendly tax break, and it's also friendly towards the taxpayers. There's 7 different brackets that the president actually lowered. And the governor's already said that he's going to come out with legislation to help anyone that's going to be hurt by this. Let's face it, there's a lot to this. A lot of people don't know exactly what's going on. I don't know how thick the bill was, probably 6 inches thick. So we're going to have to, I'm sure the governor's going to look into that. He's already made that announcement. Whether it'll get through the House or the Senate, that's a good question. Because I'll tell you a real quick story. I met with one of the leaders in Annapolis, went down talking about my new legislation, talking about tax credits. She looked at me and she said, Bob, new tax credits. I said, why? She said, because of the budget. I said, okay, that's fine. She says, my job is to make the governor look bad, and your job is to make the governor look good. And I'm just sitting there thinking, why don't we just work together? You know, let's work for the people that put us in office. You know, it's not about a political party. This is about the people that put us in office. And you people have voted us in, you voted confidence in us. And I'm just telling you, I was really shocked when this person said this to me. And I'm thinking to myself, it's no wonder we don't get nothing done. You know, it's not about party. It's about doing what's right for the community and for the people we represent. One thing I can say is the governor always says that if we disagree with something he does, we can disagree with him. If we're representing our district, he doesn't mind that. Matter of fact, I disagreed when he took the statues out. I thought it was wrong. But that's one thing about our governor. He's not playing politics. He's working for the people. And let's face it, we come from the rain tax. They're appealing that, lowering tolls. Things are getting better. National Federation of Independent Businessmen just said that we're on a 3% GDP. It hasn't been heard of in over 39 years since Bush. I believe it was Bush after Reagan. Things are looking good. I really do believe that you're going to see a lot more job creations. You're going to see more jobs coming back because of the president's bill. Anyway, if anybody wants any copies of it, I'd be more glad to email you all the different points on it. And like I said, there is fake news. They don't want to tell you half of what they want to tell you. And, you know, that's just the bottom line. And I'm sure they're going to say the same thing about us. They're going to tell you half the facts. Make sure when you get the facts, you get all the facts. Because I can take and say one thing, or it's how you present something. And anyway, it's fake news.
Thank you, Doug Long. Delegate Mesker first, and then Senator Salem.
Just real quick, yesterday, there was a CBS of all news on their morning show, took 3 families from 3 different parts of the country. And they had the same tax person look at their tax information, their financials. All 3 of them, different families. One said they're not going to get as much back in their refund at the end of the year, but they're going to see a $13,000 increase.
Thank you, Delegate. Senator Salem? Very good. Okay. We hear a lot of news about driver's license, and those people who may not have been born here are getting driver's license. This constituent would like to know, a person without proof of a birth certificate has been driving for more than 60 years. What does he or she have to do to prove that they were in fact born in the United States of America? A person without proof of a birth certificate has been driving for more than 60 years. What does he or she have to do to prove that they were in fact born in the USA? Delegate Mesker?
One, if you go to the vital statistics, they have to have proof of your birth. So you get a birth certificate.
Would that person be willing to clarify? I hate to.
Yes.
Gentlemen.
Our brother is 81 years old, born in the USA, born in Maryland, and he doesn't have proof of birth certificate, baptismal certificate, or any ID. Been out there to Reisterstown, to vital records. There's no proof, only because of that time he's adopted. And at that particular time, there was no records. And now he's coming up on his birth year, or birth month. And from what I understand, is that they have to have some sort of proof that they're a U.S. citizen or Maryland citizen.
So it's one of those circumstances the agency probably hasn't encountered, they don't have an answer for. I think that's probably something we can
Well,
get.
there's a lot of people in this situation. It's adopted children, foster care. There's no records of them, and it's going to start showing.
Okay. I think if you'd be willing, I'll give you a card and we'll have a conversation. And if we need to change the law, we'll change the law. If we need to just make a call, we'll make a call. Well, I think we could get that. He wants to be legal. He wants to have.
Well, he is.
Right. But he wants to get the card. He's
due to go for his driver's license. Right, and they're not going to give it to him because there's no baptismal, there's no proof of birth.
Right.
And he doesn't have a passport.
Right. I think we could work through that.
I think we can.
Let's get a card from me when we're done here.
I know we can fix it.
Do you oppose private contractors controlling our county parks? Would like to kick this one off.
What was the question?
Do you oppose private contractors controlling our county parks? Delegate Grammer?
I think.
I can reiterate for you,
Sure.
Robin, if you would like, whether you're all well aware of it or not, Baltimore County is gonna let a private contractor take over our Eastern Regional Park. Without saying that it's a
The one on
county,
Eastern?
without it a county issue, your children go there. Without them taking into effect that we're gonna lose 9 sites in this area, next 2 years, 3 schools get built. They're gonna let a private contractor charge our rec councils $150 an hour to use a county park. If you did not already utilize the field that was there, because back in the, 2 years ago on 43, they were gonna build lighted turf fields. Well, that contract fell through and they're getting sued over it from that date. Okay, now, our county council, when I spoke to 3 members of our county council who told me, we're not allowed to talk to property management. Folks, you're elected by the people. Somebody tells me I can't talk to you.
Right.
They better answer their phone or I'm gonna be at your door. Okay?
So
what
this
they're
is the
gonna
old
process
Altenburg
to do-
farm?
Here's what's
Yeah.
happening. The county's putting up money, this private contractor's putting up money. They're gonna build 4 more lighted turf fields in Eastern Regional. If you were not already on those fields, you're gonna pay $150 per hour to utilize a field as a rec council when we don't make. This is happening, folks. This is, your county council has approved it. Technically, it didn't go through the council, and Rec and Parks was not made aware of it. It went right over Rec and Parks' head. It was a private meeting with Fred Homan and the contractor, okay? It's game on, everybody, and I'm just letting you know, if you wanna hear the truths about things, and I don't wanna, I respect these gentlemen a lot. I'll talk to you after the meeting and tell you the truths about everything, and I'm not afraid to tell you the truth.
Just
Can
for
you ask the
clarification.
governor to look into why this stuff happens? Because they cut those trees down there in
It's a
town.
private
anyway,
meeting,
too.
indoor, approved,
Just
they're gonna
to-
build it, it's gonna go to private
For
contractors.
clarification, this is the old Altenburg farm at the
No,
eminent
this is where
domain.
Eastern Regional Park is now.
Right.
They're gonna add 4 more lighted turf fields to Eastern Regional Park. They have stripped Baltimore County Rec and Parks of any say whatsoever in this matter. Okay, they have nothing to say about it whatsoever, and it's not a county issue, it's an everybody issue.
Right.
It's our children's issue. We're gonna lose 9 fields when they build Colgate, Berkshire, and Dundalk Elementary School. By the law, they are to go to the next Eastern Regional Park, or the next regional park, when we're gonna be out of space here when they build these 3 schools in the next 2 years. Okay? Along with everything I've been fighting on the government center and everything else, but I don't wanna steal your guys' thunder, you know I respect you guys as
I
friends.
know. I
One
think-
thing Bob said, and that's what I'm beating on, it's not about the party, folks,
That's
it's
right.
about the people.
You're right.
It's
You're
about the
right.
people, it's
And
not about the party.
some of that I was aware of, some of it I wasn't, and I think a little bit might be speculation, but if you wanna
Oh, no,
talk,
it's absolute truth, Bob.
if you wanna talk, I'd be happy to talk with you about it.
I'm gonna be meeting with, Recreation Parks, so I'm gonna bring it to their attention, but I'm also want to bring it to the governor's attention and see what more we can do with that, because that's, bottom line, that's not right. You said it, it's about us. Every person in this room, no, it's every person in Baltimore County. So, you know, we need to really look into that, and I will look into that.
And they wouldn't give me a $0 room in that building across the street to put our wrestling program in. I was told today it's emphatically done, but I was also told today from our councilman who called me and said I'm being relieved of my duties as Rec and Parks for this area after 6 years, so he's not reappointing me, which is fine. I've been nice, now it's game on. The truth's come out. Buzz, I will give you whatever story you want, and I will tell the truth to everybody. You guys have got to stop having the wool pulled over your eyes. What's going on? A $0 room they won't give us in this building. $0. We're gonna paint 55 pickleball courts throughout this county. Put $1.5 million there. We give $43 million out to Towson. Okay, do you understand? Okay, they're taking our money and doing what they want with it. And that's the issue. And if you guys ever want to know the truth, I'm more than happy to tell you the truth. And I won't say it's a state issue. I'll tell you what I feel about it. And I have no problem. And I don't have to recant my stories because I don't have to make up lies. I will tell you the truth that I said.
So we can move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Leading into community, how can communities find out about grants, programs, and various amounts? Senator Selly?
Call my office. call our office and we can let you know what's out there, what's available. There's money that's allotted for certain areas, if I'm not mistaken. And Robin deals with this more than I do. But people, businesses, communities have opportunities to get help. And you let my office know. I have my card, you let the offices know. What is needed, what you would like to have, what we can complement the area, we would love to do that. So, I know you've been interested.
Thanks. So the question is, typically when you're looking at some kind of funding for a project, it starts with a question. You say something like, I'm trying to make this stream, this trail adjacent to a stream. How do I get that done? And a lot of places, there are historic designations which open up more dollars for different types of projects. It depends on what you're trying to get done where. So that's the bigger explanation of it, but the shorter answer is, give me a call, give any of us a call, and we not only are staffers, but we have resources which we can inquire, and then give us a bigger explanation. Hey, there's X county, X state, X federal, and in some cases even private dollars for that.
Thank you, Delegate. Will our delegation do everything possible to support seniors and the elderly with benefits? One major problem is that scams that affect the elderly. I'll read that again. Will our delegation do all things possible to support seniors and elderly with benefits? One major problem are the scams that affect the elderly. Delegate Metzger and then Delegate Grammer.
My heart is with seniors, and I get phone calls all the time. You have to be so clear when you get a phone call that says, if you'll send me $355, you're gonna get $9 million. Let's just use a little common sense. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we have an aging population, but we need to be clear. You tell those folks, you call my son or you call my daughter and let my daughter or son answer that question. So many times our seniors get scammed into, I was watching a news report not long ago. This lady had sent almost $60,000 and got nothing. And her son had just happened to see her checkbook and said, "Mother, what are you doing?" And well, they're saying I have to send this money because they're going to send me a check for like $3 million. I've won. Folks, that's a scam. Just a scam. But we'll protect you. I'll protect you. You call my office. Feel free to call me. I'll dig it. Attorney General gets calls all the time.
This question, I believe, is directed to Delegate Long. Could you please give the details of the Section 8 bill?
Well, Section 8 bill, we defeated it. Again, I have to be careful because I'm a licensed real estate broker. We can only discriminate against source of income as a licensed broker. I've said this and I've said this time again, we need to get homeowners back into our neighborhoods. Lift up our older communities. Look what's happening in Hamden, what's happening over in Butchers Hill. If you just look around down off of South Broadway, the Dollar Homes, it's all about home ownership. And that's what we need to push. And we need to make sure, one, we have to get good paying jobs back here so people can buy houses and they can be good, productive citizens. Section 8, you know, I don't want to see any more put down here. We've already got enough. And again, we need to promote home ownership. I actually had a bill in last year, or year before last, that talked about foreclosures. I know it was a big problem. So now the state has to notify every time a house is foreclosed on to the county so they can be aware that that property is now vacant. And I had the bill and it didn't pass, but that's all right. The Democrat picked it up and it went through. I don't care. It happened. And, you know, this is what we need to work on. We need to all work together to make sure that we get what we can, you know, done for our community. It's not about party.
What does the bill actually say? What are the, I don't know how else to put it. What are the details of the bill that you're submitting to stop the Section 8?
We cannot, I don't think we're putting a bill in, and I think it's kind of a moot point because if I'm not mistaken, Secretary of HUD actually, just, started talking about Section 8 housing. I think there's gonna be more vouchers coming out. We don't need any more down here, that's for sure.
Well, they're here.
Well, I'm telling you, home ownership, values of properties goes up. Investors want to get as much return on their dollar as possible. So if your home's worth a lot more to a homeowner, that's what they're going to do, they're going to sell it. I've been doing this for 30-some years, I think I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Oh, you do. I'm not
Right.
saying that. I'm saying
And,
how-
I'm a landlord, but I'm
how-
not an absentee landlord. There's a lot of difference. You have absentee
Sure.
landlords that don't take care of their properties, and the only thing you're worried about is milking them for everything you can. I'm not that way.
I'm a real estate agent also.
I know.
And I'm.
We work together.
Yeah, well, now I work
This,
for Grandpa.
this question wasn't loaded. I did want to make, go ahead.
It's just irritating whenever you have new developments going up and they're allowing more Section 8s.
Well, the problem is federal law states that if there's more than so many units, I think it's 50. I want to be precise on the numbers, but if there are more than 50 units, they have to take Section 8 housing if it's a rental.
Who says?
It's a federal law.
Federal?
Yeah, it's federal. Again, I think that if the rents are high enough, you know, if we have like down on Boston Street, you know, you're not gonna have Section 8 down on Boston Street. You got houses down there, the guys are paying $24,000 a year on property taxes. I'm just saying, we need to make sure to strengthen our older neighborhoods. That was one of the things that I ran on, and I'm still running on, and I wanna make sure we can do that. We wanna make sure that our older communities are supported. I love it down here. I've been down here for 35 years.
With the investors though, because they're really the issue.
Right. The investors, they're out to make as much money as they can. If property values go up, they're gonna sell. It's that simple. And we wanna make it so convenient for homeowners to come in and buy a home and make it as easy as we possibly can. And it's not just because I wanna sell them the house, which ain't bad, but,
Well, they're working on that well.
Right.
There are things and there are good things happening so people can buy homes.
right, well, there's a lot of
But
programs.
that's not stopping the Section 8s in any way, shape, or form.
I want to say one thing. There was actually a mention of us going through the questions and going through and picking and choosing what we were going to answer. That's not the truth. When I ran on transparency, and that, somebody said that, and I just want to make sure that all these questions, if somebody doubts what we're dealing with up here, please take a look at it. And if somebody pulls some cards out because they don't want us to deal with it, I'll tell you what, I'll be the first one to take them to the mat. Anyway.
Okay, I'm a community leader down at North Point Village for 10 years, and as far as the Section 8, as far as the income and all that, I have a house payment of like $700, and I got a single home with a half acre. And how these people that come out here and put Section 8 in the houses that are making money off the houses charge $1,600 a month. How many people here in this room pay $1,600? Right. So first off, there has to be a cap put on what they can put on a hot house. That's gonna limit Section 8. That's gonna take the money out of their pocket, and their investments will have to go somewhere else. Now, I mentioned this once before, I think I talked to you, John. I think what we need to do, for every house that's in the area, has to be registered with the county government. So when it sits there vacant for 3 years,
Yeah.
when it's sold, I told John, I wouldn't mind, if I had bought a house for an investment, I'd pay $5 to have it registered. It's a $5 fee. It goes to Baltimore County. Baltimore County comes to the community leaders like me, let you know this house is vacant, this is the property owner. There's so many vacant houses in the whole Dundalk area. If this was put in place, it would sit there for years. Homeless wouldn't move in, fires wouldn't break in, and then when it does come up to the bank, it takes 3 years to get back to it. You have these investors from New York City who never stay into this community, but basically see a photo, an opportunity to make money. And until you put a cap on it, it's gonna keep on.
So there's about 4 questions, and I'm gonna answer all of them for
Well, let me
you.
add something real quick to this here about incentives, okay? I know there are other municipalities, okay, that literally have criterias that their councils, okay, and mayors or executives create. And then what they do is they set aside dedicated funding to incentivize the purchase of homes within those municipalities. We have a corporation here, it's a community development corporation that's been in existence for over, I think, 12 years, okay? And I believe they were formulated because they have vast support, okay, from Baltimore County agencies, and they are currently receiving, I think, millions of dollars a year, okay, that you guys, I think, sign off and provide back to the councilman here so he can then provide it to this CDC. Now, what I'm asking is that why isn't the CDC working with this gentleman right here in his community to percentage-wise allot that money to go into his community on a percentage basis instead of them completely controlling those assets that we, the taxpayers, are funding?
So I answer her, then I answer him, then I answer you. What does the bill do? The bill says if you're a property owner, you cannot decline Section 8 vouchers for payment for your home, for your payment for your property. It also, if you have a rental property, you must offer, I think it was 15% of the property available for Section 8 tenants. If you have an interest in the bill, you should really pull up the site and read the bill because it's a monstrosity. It's a total job. You mentioned how much did you mention how much you paid for your home?
No, I'm mentioning what Section 8 gives out to a row home.
So how much does an
Actual
average
person who bought a house through a real estate.
How much does an average row home owner pay for their mortgage?
$600.
I have a single home. I pay about $900.
Okay, well then.
So how much was the Section 8 voucher?
Section 8 is getting $1,600.
$1,600.
That's
So
$700 more than what you're getting.
here's the big problem with a lot of communities on the east side here. You know, like Dundalk and Essex and Edgemere, they've always been like really great, affordable communities. Like I grew up in Essex, Middle River, and you have a lot of row home communities. And my family, my grandparents moved to Hawthorne when the homes were first built. They were row homes. My parents bought their home. I lived there when I was young. And when you have some kind of like vacuum of ownership, like a housing bubble or an aging community, what starts to happen is the housing speculators come in and they figured out that they can make a ton of profit by buying up affordable homes and turning around and flipping it to a Section 8 voucher holder. Does anyone in this room pay $1,600 a month for their home?
I asked that question.
Yeah, so the vouchers actually go up to $3,000 a month. Look, it's hard enough for like working people to pay for their own bills. There's a little bit of injustice to pay another person's.
It's almost an incentive
Look,
to get on Section 8.
anybody in society would say like, look, if we're willing to help people, but it's become a massive movement to benefit certain voters and not others. And in Baltimore County, there are 8,000 vouchers. There was a town hall, I think Scott may have held or videotaped, and someone asked about that, and the lady who oversaw the program for Baltimore County, she said, you know, we have 8,000 vouchers, we can't oversee them all. There's no way we could ever oversee them all. And it's a pattern in government. We have these massive programs, we just don't spend any resources to oversee. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to try and answer your question, which was.
Buzz, can you play it back?
This is the
The
big
money.
point. This is the
Why
big, yeah,
why
this
is
is the big
one
point I wanted to
CDC
make.
getting full
This is-
control of all of our tax
right.
money when it should be
This
apportioned
is
to each
two
community?
big points. Why this happens, and this is happening in Essex currently on Joe's and Haynes Corner. Developers get giant tax credits to build what's considered affordable housing. So what you have in Essex is you have a lady, her parents died, she got the home, she scooped up a couple adjacent properties, and she was the one who wanted the workforce housing. Well, this is right next to Riverdale, and if I'm not mistaken, the eminent domain of Riverdale tore that down. As well as no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Village of Tall Trees. They also did that. Yeah, they also did that with Riverdale, and that was the first thing she wanted to build was workforce housing because it's so massively profitable that you turn the housing in your own community into like a speculative issue where you're just hoping to cash out to the tune of 6 figures. The CDC, they did get funded. The old person who was sponsoring bills to fund them became unelected. So they found a delegate from the city who sponsored the bill. It's $12 million a year. I voted against it. I think we all voted against it.
Can we work with our local CDC over here, okay, in the shipping place, to have the monies that they're allotted to be proportionately apportioned to each community within this 7th district?
That's a valid question, and it should, when should that be asked?
Because we are the ones giving them the money through our property taxes.
Amen.
One other housing question, then we have a few more questions. We recently sold a home and purchased a home, and then we come to realize that the closing costs in Maryland are one of the highest in the nation. Our realtor told us to notify our elected officials about this and ask why they want legislation to address this. Is anybody willing to do this?
Sorry, say that again.
Sure.
How are you talking about it?
When we recently sold a home and then purchased a home, we came to realize that the closing costs in Maryland are one of the highest in the nation. Our realtor told us to notify our elected officials and then ask what they work towards the legislation, and will they work towards the legislation to address this? Is anybody willing to take this on?
I'll talk to that.
Dr. Long?
Actually, I hate to keep saying this, but that's a county issue. The state tax is not that high. Baltimore County transfer tax and documentary stamps are where the money's at. It's not a state issue. I think it's very small amount. Unfortunately, it does cost to sell your house. I don't know, who was the person that asked that question? Didn't they go over all the information with you? I should
Yeah,
be careful.
line by line, I don't recall it being a county issue, there were county taxes, state taxes,
Right.
local taxes. There was so much, that it just was astounding.
I understand.
The total of both buying and selling on both ends, it was just almost prohibitive.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and again, I'm a real estate broker. I just know that how I conduct my business is I make sure people fully understand what the taxes are and what it's going to cost. It's expensive to buy or sell a home.
Not as much as in other states, I mean, this state is just explosive.
Well, welcome to Maryland. That's one thing I can say. We can look into it, but as far as the state portion is very low. It's more of a county transfer taxes and dollars. You might want to look at your paper. They should have given you something called Truth in Lending.
Yeah.
It should have showed you how the breakdown of everything. Please take a look at that and tell me if you think it's a county or the state. And if we can do something, I'm all about it because I want to make sure people buy and sell homes.
Thank you, Delegate. Senator Selling?
I want to look into that, because our neighboring states, if they're Virginia, Pennsylvania, others, if they're not as much, I want to know why we are. So I want to look into this, because to me, it is an issue. And I believe Dr. Long is right. Something that you know about, and that you see it, because we're not always selling our house every year. When the time comes, you find this out. So I'm personally gonna look at this and see what more we can do to benefit the people of the state of Maryland. Because I think it's another reason why people go to Pennsylvania or Virginia or other states, because of the taxes here. I mean, I'm happy to say that our governor hasn't raised taxes in the past 3 years, but it's still something that we need to work on. And we will look into that.
Thank you. Delegate Metzger?
Just real fast. I listen to a real estate show once in a while, and what intrigues me is they always say, if you're asking $220 for your house, tell the people that you'll take the $220, but you'll pay the buyer's fee and all the fees. That way they'll say you're getting your asking price, but you're really not, because you dropped the price because you're paying the property fees. Sorry for the real estate question.
Thank you, Delegate.
I'll be more than glad to talk to you afterwards.
Why can't we have school prayer every morning like it was when I went to school from 1932 to 1945? Delegate Metzger, you want to take this one on?
I'm fighting for it. We have, in our schools, tried everything but prayer. When prayer walked out of school, left school, so did discipline rise. So did abuse in families. I told somebody the other day about putting prayer back in school, and their response was, every time there's a surprise quiz or a test, you're gonna pray. But I somehow believe, ladies and gentlemen, that if a student, let me go back. Remember last year when the fire in this city, there was 7 children got burned. Wouldn't it touch the hearts of someone that if a student got up and say, let's pray for that family. don't you think that someone throughout the day would have felt encouraged just to know that somebody felt something? I truly believe when I bend my knees and ask the Lord to help me. The other night, I'll tell a confession. When the strike of midnight, my wife and I got out of the recliner. She got up off the couch. I hugged her and I kissed her. And I prayed a prayer. I said that to say this. I believe that the family that prays together stays together. Because when we send our children out to that school, we have no clue. We have the police officers, they leave. We need to train our children to respect.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate. Ladies and gentlemen, as was mentioned previously, and I mentioned this earlier, that we had questions that all of you have done, and we're very gracious. This is our 25th question. We'll have closing remarks, and then the delegates and the State Center will be around afterwards to answer your questions. But we've gotten through all 25 questions, so thank you very much for your patience, and hope to try to keep things moving along. This last question I saved for last because it is for all of you. Okay, I guess we'll go from right to left. What have you accomplished in the district to make life better for the people, and why do you think you should be reelected?
Very good.
Delegate Metzger, you want to start off with this? And we'll just come right down the line.
Start off with, as I come as an elected official with three great guys. I think we started out novices, and I think we enter this fourth year with a lot of learning experiences behind our belt. But I also believe that we have accomplished much through the state. You see, when we push that red or green button, there are 6 million voters that we represent. And one of the bills that I'm very proud of is House Bill 898. Now, that bill was signed by the governor. It went through the county council, but there was some opposition, no fault of no council member. But I will tell you that Montgomery County has adopted that bill, Anne Arundel County has adopted that bill, Kent County has adopted that bill to give our seniors up to 20% tax credits on their properties. Any tax credit bill that Delegate Long puts in, I'm for. Any education bill that Delegate Grammer puts in, I'm for. Any community bill that Senator Salling will cross-file. I stand proud that we're working together with our community leaders in Essex and Edgemere and Dundalk throughout Todd's Inheritance, Fort,
Mo.
Meeny, meeny, miny. But I'm proud to say that what I do every day is I wake up and I walk out of my house and I know that I'm representing each one of you in this room. And I want to carry myself with that vision and that leadership and that integrity that I ran on. I want to carry that on for the next 4 years as well. God bless you.
I always have to follow Rick up, and it's the worst job in the world. So I think there are big issues. I think they're the defining moments. We are lawmakers, and we're judged on the laws that we pass. You know, and there are things like the JAVA Act. Right here at Patapsco, you had that great program with a great story. Hey, schools struggle to provide vocational opportunities for children with cognitive disabilities. And my wife and I just had our first child, and if you had a child with a cognitive disability, I mean, I can't imagine what those parents go through every day. So you have these kids who are, when you have a cognitive disability, you're struggling to make connections with those around you. You have communication issues. And when we went to the reopening of that shop, I mean, it's the coolest thing in the world to see children with Down syndrome, and you know, the way the teachers talked about it, they said these are the kids that would get beat up. And instead you had a line 30 feet long of other students, you know, buying coffees, and there's these great interactions. And one of the parents said, you know, I've seen changes in my kid that I've never seen, and I want my child to do something better than just pick like leaves of spinach off of a conveyor belt. And I think there are those defining moments like that. I think a lot of what we get done, frankly, will never be recognized for. And I'll give you a couple examples. There's a stormwater remediation problem in Essex. You have a developer, the developer's not managing his stormwater remediation. The fences that they have to put up to protect surrounding properties. We fixed that. We threw our weight around a little bit. We fixed that, and then now all of a sudden you don't have muddy stormwater going across people's property and leaking right into the bay. I think there's issues like the marijuana dispensary in Berkshire, and I don't really talk about this a lot, but not many people realize this, but Berkshire was going to get both marijuana dispensaries in our district. And Nora, who's one of the community leaders over there, I see a couple heads nodding, and she called me one day and she's like, I'm at my wit's end. You know, we worked with the one dispensary, and we said, the dispensary had actually come to Nora and said, you know, we want to have a positive relationship, let's talk and you can give us some advice. And Nora said, you know, well, we have this old shopping center, this old commercial space, right next to Berkshire. It's that old one, that McDonald's on North Point, where they had all the dumping. And they said, you know, we need something here. Would you consider this? And then the first dispensary just went there. They said, well, that's a great idea. We'll go there. And they're investing there, and they're cleaning that up, and they're going to stop all the transient traffic. But the second dispensary, the location that they selected was the old florist that just shut down. Do you remember the name of that florist?
It was on Eastern Avenue.
It was not Eastern Avenue. It was right. Armando's. Ramondo's. It was. Yeah. It was between a child's daycare center and row homes. And you know, I didn't think I was going to win that one, but I finally hunted that lady down. And you know, the owner of the first dispensary, he lives in Baltimore. He kind of gets the Baltimore politics, and it's not the best thing to step on people. You should talk to them first. And he did that, and that worked out. The second dispensary owner was a businesswoman from Canada, and she had that big businesswoman voice and big businesswoman personality, and she kind of just, when she talked to you, she kind of just rolled over you. And I backed up and I kind of said, you know, this is what's going on here. Why don't you think about it a little bit? And you know, where that issue was, it was stuck in the courts, and she was trying to get an exemption, and she just backed off, and she said, okay, we're gonna move signal here. Had a lady who's, her cousin and her cousin's husband both had a serious heroin addiction. This is not opiates, they're on heroin. The mother is in the hospital, she's got plaque around her heart. They have 3 children. And the lady that called me is trying to get custody of these kids. And we helped her walk through that. And it was a lengthy thing, and it was a painful thing. But ultimately, she got custody of these 3 kids, working through the system when those kids were really going down a bad road. And we're friends with that lady to this day. But these are stories you'll never really be able to tell. You know, they would never come up for any reason. And I think, you know, a lot of the bills, we passed the bill, those are going to be few and far between, because frankly what we're talking about is changing the structure of state government. But the constituent work is what really matters and changes people's lives. And I think, why should we be re-elected? I'll speak for myself, and I think the other gentleman here is because I think we do reflect the values of southeastern Baltimore County. I've lived here my entire life, and I like to think I advocate for our people in a great way. I know there are a lot of people here I've worked on a lot of different issues with, so I hope that to be true, and I hope you believe that as well, so thank you.
We actually started in 2010. Remember this just like it happened yesterday. We stood out here in the corner with Martin O'Malley and his bunch, sign waving. I was the only Republican out there in the mix of that, waving Bob Long and Governor Early. I think we've accomplished a lot. We've made some promises that we've kept. We've lowered tolls. We've created jobs. We're working on, you know, we want to make sure that your taxes are spent wisely. a lot of people don't realize this, the governor has mandates that he has to fund. I think he only has 18% of the budget he can work with. Some things I'm really proud of. When I first, in 2010 after that, does anybody remember when you had to send in that little piece of paper for you to keep receiving your homestead property tax? Well, I contacted Senator Nancy Jacobs. We did a thing down there in front of my house to make sure that people were aware of it. Well, from doing that, the legislators decided we're going to extend it for a year. So they did, because if you hadn't filled out that little piece of paper, your property taxes would have went up overnight. That was the first thing. The other thing, I've been fighting for tolls and the turnaround down at the Key Bridge. I've been fighting for that since 2010. I'm trying to think what else we've accomplished. Registration for the foreclosure homes. Like I said, I had a bill in, Democrat picked it up, but it went through. I really don't care, as long as we can make sure our communities are well protected. Last session, I did get 2 bills put through. I think they were very substantial. One was about abandoned boats. If anybody lives on the water, we have abandoned boats throughout our community, and there was no laws to really address that. So now there's a law in the book that says that if there's a sunken, it actually changed it to sunken and abandoned boats, that they can actually go out there and tag those and remove them after giving the owners of the boat knowledge, or we want to make sure they're notified. And also relieves the liability for nonprofit like Back River Restoration to go out there and take these boats out. So that's not only a good thing to help save the bay, but saving the taxpayers money. I'm very proud of that. The other thing is, I did have a bill passed last year. It was a tax revitalization tax credit. I've talked about this. It did pass. The governor signed it into law. MACO come out and supported it. The Maryland Association of Realtors did pass. So we're going to make sure that we keep working on that. And basically what it does, if you do improvements on your home, instead of getting hit with a full assessment, it's going to amortize over a 5-year period. I want to make sure that if you do something on your home, your assessments don't go up. I mean, I don't know about you, but I pay enough in property taxes. Amen. And, I want to make sure every dollar we spend is spent wisely. And, our governor's trying to do that. I'm not going to say too much about our county executive. We also promised about the government center. We fought that, we stopped it. Now, the next thing is what's going to happen with that. We want to make sure the next county executive don't forget us down here. We've been treated like a red-headed stepchild too long. And I'm going to make sure whatever power that I have, that's going to be dealt with. Bob, you know where we're at. The governor did have a say in the sale of the government center because there was a covenant on the deed that said it had to be approved by the Board of Public Works. The governor stood up and he said no. So the county executives, it was one of, I'll try to be nice, he gave away the property. That's all being said. We just gave $43 million, I think it was, 42, to Towson, but they wouldn't give us 18 million to fix this over here. Now, you tell me if something's not wrong there. So we're going to have to hold our next county executive more accountable, because you know what, we pay taxes just like everybody else. And yeah, and anyway, we've accomplished a lot, and I think we all have, and we're going to continue to fight for you. And I think that's something that this part of the county hasn't seen. Somebody's going to stand up and work for the people. Again, it's not for the party, it's about you guys. Thanks.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out. It takes a little time to get here in this cold weather. As a delegation, we've heard your cry more than once. We've done all that we can to meet you personally, going to community meetings. I've come to know more people in our district because I go to the community meetings, because I am concerned. Just as the other delegates, they go also. My concern here is this district, but it's also the state of Maryland. There's a good bill that I passed that helped education. There's an education trust fund. It passed through legislation, and I was proud of that. Now the monies that go to other casinos, that people don't use the vouchers there, that goes to an education trust fund and minority owners to help them in business, to help our kids. I myself, with Education, Health, and Environment, have visited out of 33 28 schools. Why? Because nobody else has done it, because I'm concerned about our kids. I'm concerned about our kids because they're not getting the education that they should be getting. I believe our kids need the best education because they are our future. And our board has let them down. They need to be accountable. I'm here to fight with parents and with other people that are willing to fight for our kids. Because we have let them down. Where? We have let them down at the board. There's people that have been fighting for better schools. I had a bill called Healthy Schools, and I had a great support, and I think it's a very good bill. We're going to try to implement that again, to make our buildings the way they should be. We have been a neglected district for years, and most people in this room know that. We're going to get 3 new schools, Colgate, Berkshire, and Dundalk. But there's other schools that need to be taken care of. And I'm proud of our kids. I'm proud of the places that our kids are going for education and how successful they have been, what they're going through in these schools. We are fighting bullying. It's a very serious issue in our middle schools, and we continue to fight these issues in our schools. And just to say this, more than anything, we are here as a delegation to fight for you. Your concerns are our concerns, and we want to do all that we can. That's why we got money for the visions. That's why we got other monies to help out different communities so we can build our houses and we can have better homes. We want to continue that. That's why we repealed the rate tax. That's why we continue to fight to not raise taxes or fees, as Baltimore County continues to do. And we're here for you. That's the only reason why. And we will continue to fight for you. I want to thank you so much for coming on again, and God bless you.
I take this opportunity to personally thank the representatives of the Dundalk Eagle newspaper, the Avenue News, the East County Times, Dundalk TV, as well as Baltimore County Post. This concludes our District 6 pre-session town hall meeting. We'd like to thank all of you for coming and attending and participating in our town hall meeting, because democracy only works when you get involved. Our elected officials will remain afterwards to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much for your attendance. Please be careful going home, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
They will be around later when they to answer any questions.
And a great job by our moderator.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a town hall meeting tomorrow at the Edgemere Elementary School. So those of you who like to come to that, that'd be great. That's sponsored by the North Point Community. I saw